Hello everyone, welcome to Tutorials by Decade. My name is Decade, and last video we were able to get our character to move around, so let's just test to make sure that still works. But yeah, we got the character moving around, so we get the 4 cardinal directions plus our diagonals. So we are good for movement, but obviously, you know, the character's just sliding around. So in this video, we are going to animate the character, at least the walking animation. We're not going to do all of the animations yet, but yeah, we're gonna work on that. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on our player here. We're going to come down to components. We're going to add a component, and we're going to do an animator. All right. So right now, we're not going to mess with any of that stuff. So what we need to do is actually get another window. I'm going to put it down here. Actually, I'm going to move project temporarily over here. Come on, stop it. Thank you. I want to move project temporarily over there. It is going to make things a little bit easier, and I'm going to temporarily move this over to there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to window. We are going to go to animation, and we are going to go to, oh, not the animator, but we're going to need animator anyway. So put the animator up there, which is perfect. Window, animation, and animation. So we can dock this one down here. So once again, click on player, and then we're going to, it should say down here to begin animating player, create an animation clip. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit create, and it's going to ask us where do we want to put this new animation. So what we're going to do is we are going to move it to assets, create a new folder, animations. Inside that folder, create a new folder and name it player. And we're going to name this one. We'll name this one idle down. And we're going to hit save. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our art. We're going to get a character. We are going to go to players, and we're going to find whatever player sprite sheet you use. Since I used player character 4, we're going to use that one. But if you used 1, 2, or 3, make sure you use the correct one for whatever character you're using. But we're going to open that up, and we are going to just drag this onto there. And let's actually go over to scene. Let's move our player just a little bit there, and we'll zoom in. Obviously, it's just idle down, so character's just going to stand there. So let's get some other animations going on here. We're going to create a new clip. We're going to name this one idle left. We're going to hit save. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and find the idle left. So it should be this one right here. That is player care 4-_48. That 4 will be different depending on which sprite sheet you're using. So it'll either be 1, 2, 3, or 4. But that is our idle left. So we're going to drag that onto this. And then we'll hit play, and you can see it just loops, but now our character is facing left. We're just going to repeat the process for all the idles. So you want idle down, idle left. We'll just keep rotating and go idle up. Ignore my phone. So idle up should be _32. Drag that on there. And then create new clip. Idle right. And that one should be 16. So there is all of our idle animations. So, you know, those are boring animations, obviously, because all that's doing is just turning the character one direction and just having them stand there. So let's move on to actually walking. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new clip, and we'll just stick with the same order. Instead of idle, we're going to type in walk down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go up, and these first 4 are our walk animation. So what we're going to do is bring that one here. Then we're going to go to number 16 underscore 16 actually. And we're going to go to 5. This is underscore 2. We're going to move that to 10 seconds. And this is underscore 3. We'll move that to 15 seconds. Now what we're going to have to do is take the underscore 3 and put it again at 20. If you don't do that, the animation ends here. So as soon as it gets to that last clip, that last sprite of your character walking down, it's going to quickly go back to the first one, and it's just going to look really funky. So the reason why you add this 4th one in here, so that way this actually has time to play. And let's see what this looks like. So there's our animation. As you can see, that looks a little fast. So let's spread it out a little bit. This should be at 40. This should be at 30. This should be at 20, and this should be at 10. Now let's take a look. So that looks a little bit better, and you can always adjust that depending on how fast you want your character to walk. We'll definitely test that once we put the animations with moving, but for now, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to, again, repeat the same thing, but instead of walk down, we're going to do walk left. So again, we want to find these ones. So it'll be underscore 48, underscore 49, underscore 50, and underscore 51. So same thing. We'll just do at 0, at 10, at 20, at 30, and then repeat the last one at 40. And we'll play that one. And it looks pretty good. So now we do it again. Walk up. And should be underscore 32, underscore 33, underscore 34, and underscore 35. So the first one at 0, second one at 10, third one at 20, fourth one at 30, and repeat the fourth one at 40. And we'll play that one. All right, looking good. And for the last one, walk right. So that one should be underscore 16, underscore 17, 18, and 19. Now, I know I was saying underscore, and you might be asking, why is he saying that? I'm looking over here to the right. You see all that stuff right here. If you followed the steps that I showed you in the last video, yours should match up. Again, the only thing that might be different is the 4 here. Depending on which sprite sheet you use, that's either going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. But everything else should be the same. However, it could potentially be different on yours, so bear that in mind. I should have said that earlier. That's my fault. But we're going to repeat the process. That one at 0, this one at 10, this one at 20, this one at 30, and repeat this one at 40, and then we'll hit play. All right, looking pretty good. So I'm going to get my layout back to the way it was by just hitting mine. Of course, it gets rid of those windows, so I'm just going to bring those back up real fast because I'm going to need the animator one at least. Animator, there we go. And animator. Nope, that's the one I just opened. Genius. Animation, there we go. We'll just stock this one down here for now. All right. So now the question is, how do we actually get the character to move? Because if we start the game again and we move around, you're still not animating. So in order to do that, there's a few things that we need to do. First, we're going to go to our animator, and you're going to see all of these animations that we just created. You want to highlight them, and you want to delete them. I like to move this stuff around just a little bit. But what the animator is, it's kind of, that's the best way to describe it. It's like a visual code without coding. We're still going to have to put some things into a script in order for this to work. But essentially what it is you can make your animations happen from the very beginning or from any state, or you can exit your animations. For the animations that we're doing, we're going to do some of the stuff in code, so we don't need to worry about like exit, or at least not for this part. So you can't really delete it. So just kind of move it somewhere out of the way. Any state we're going to be using a little bit later, but not right now. What we are going to use is entry. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a blend tree. So we're going to right click on this. We are going to create state, and we're going to go from new blend tree. We're then going to click on the blend tree, and we're just going to name this the idle tree. All right. So what this is saying is when the animation first starts, it's automatically going to go right to the idle tree. For the idle tree, obviously we just have the idle animations, but we need to add something to tell the animator like what animation to play. So over here, you're going to see parameters. So I want you to click on that, and we're going to go to this little plus sign, and we are going to hit float, and we're going to name this one move X. Then we're going to create another one that's a float, and we're going to name it move Y. And then we are going to create a bool. For those of you that are brand new to programming, a bool is essentially true or false. It can only be true or it can only be false. So we're going to hit bool, and we're going to call that is moving. Now, before we get any further, if you were going to follow along with this, you do need to name these the exact same way I named them. Lowercase m in move, and then uppercase X. Same with the Y. And then is moving is lowercase followed by M for moving uppercase. Now, technically, you can name these whatever you want to name them. However, you'll see in a bit why it's important to remember what they are and name them something that at least you can recognize. Again, if you're working with a team, you're going to want to make it so that way the team can recognize what it is. But we are going to need to know the names of these, and capitalization and all that stuff is very important. So just keep that in mind. So now that we have our variables or our parameters set in, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our idle tree. We're going to right click. Actually, we're going to double click it. There we go. Now we're in the blend tree, and we're going to click on the blend tree. And now you'll notice over here, your inspector changed. This is where we're going to be working. Ignore my phone. This is where we're going to be working to make these animations kind of happen. All right, hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, you will notice over here that your inspector changed, and this is where we're going to be essentially telling the animator what animation to play. So you'll see here where it says blend type, we're going to change that from 1D to 2D simple direction because it is a 2D simple direction movement. So that just means, your up, down, left, right, and your diagonals. Now you'll notice over here, nothing's really changed. Well, we got to change it. So where it says list is empty, there's this little plus symbol right here. We're going to click on that, and we're going to add motion field. So this is our first animation. As you can see, it is blank. So we're going to go to this little target button. We're going to click on that, and we are going to find idle down, and we will double click on that. Then we're going to hit this again, add motion field, and you'll notice this changed. Well, you want this to change because This is where we're actually going to see where our animations kind of like how they happen. And it's kind of hard to explain, but you'll see what I mean here in a minute. We're going to name this one idle left. Add another motion field, idle right. And a motion field, idle downward, or idle up. I kind of put these out of order, didn't I? So there we go. We can just drag and move these to get them in order. Now you'll see POS X, POS Y, so position X, position Y. This is essentially saying, hey, you know, what position is the character facing or going in order for these animations to go into effect. So up here where it says parameters, right now they're both on blend. But if you remember, we created this move X and move Y over here. So we need to move those to move X and move Y. Now when we change these, it'll correspond with move X and move Y. All right. So idle down should be 1, 0. Oh, I'm sorry. It should be 0, 1. Or -1. My God, I'm all over the place. So 0, -1 is down. All right. So left will be 1, 0. Or -1, 0. Up will be 0, 1. And right will be +1, 0. Now, we have our 4 cardinal directions, and for the most part, that'll work just fine. However, from my experience, sometimes when you go diagonal, it just looks weird because it thinks it should be one animation versus the other. Like whenever you're moving up and to the left, sometimes it does the up animation, and it just, to me, that looks weird. So if you want to make sure that the diagonals are going in the right direction, we are going to add 4 more motion fields. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this one idle left. We'll make this one idle right. And we'll make both of these idle down. Because whenever you're facing down and moving, I know this is just idle and it might not make any sense just yet. But whenever you're going downward, it just looks better for the character to be facing the camera. Whereas when you're going up, it's, for me, better for the character to face whatever direction you're going diagonally. So idle left, we're going to put in the diagonal, so -1 and 1. Idle right, it'll be 1 and 1. And for these two, it doesn't really matter as long as you get the down and left and down and right. So we'll do -1, -1, and then we'll do 1, -1. So you see you have your 8 points here. All right. And you want to make sure your animations correspond with those points as if your character was moving in that direction. Now, again, I know it's idle, but there's a reason why we have to do it in idle as well. So that way, whenever your character stops moving, it knows what direction to face. All right. Now that we are done with that, we got to do the exact same thing for the actual walking. So what we're going to do is we're going to, over here, we're going to click on layers and click on base layer. And then up here, base layer. It used to take you back. I don't know why it didn't. So anyway, we're going to right click and we're going to create state and from a new blend tree. And we're going to call this one the walk tree. That's going to drive me crazy. There you go. All right. So we have to do the same thing for the walk tree, but before we do that, we have to make a transition. So again, the animator knows that as soon as it starts animating, its very first animation should be the idle animation in whatever direction you're facing. But it does not know that it needs to go into the walk tree when the character moves. So what we have to do is we have to make a transition, and you right click on idle tree, and you'll see make transition, and you'll get like this little arrow that you can move around. Well, we click on walk tree, and now we've made a transition from idle tree to walk tree. But we also need to understand that when we're not walking, we need to transition back to idle. So we're going to click on the walk tree, right click, make transition, and make a transition back. If you remember in your parameters, we made a parameter called isMoving. It's a bool. So when we click on the actual transition, you'll notice your inspector changed, and it says conditions. The list is empty. Well, we're going to add a condition. So we're going to hit the plus. We're going to change that to isMoving, and you'll see that it gives you a bool, so a true or false statement. We want it to be true when we're transitioning into walking, and we want it to be false when we are going back to idle. So now that we have that set up, we need to do the exact same thing in walk tree, which is add those animations. So again, we want to click on the blend tree here, change that to 2D simple directional, make sure that we add our parameters X and parameter Y. Let's add our 4 motion fields. The first one, we are going to do walk down. Then we're going to do walk left, walk up, and then walk right. So it should be the same thing as before. For this one, it should be 0, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, and 1, 0. So there's our 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, west, up, down, left, right. Again, if that should be good enough to do the animations, but I like to make sure our diagonals are animating correctly. So we're going to add 4 more motion fields again. We're going to do walk left, walk right, walk down, and walk down. So once again, for left, it is going to be -1 and 1 for that corner. Walk right is going to be 1 and 1 for that corner. Then we should have, what is it? -1 and -1, and then 1, -1. There we go. So there is our 8 directions. So if we go back to base layer, that is our animator settings for now. We're going to be adding more because there's going to be more states. Like eventually we're going to add running, we're going to add pushing an object, we're going to add lifting an object, we're going to add attacking, and all that fun stuff. But for now, this should be good. Now, the one thing I forgot to mention with these transitions, right now, no exit time, no fixed duration. So uncheck those things. Once you do that, we are good. We can go back to our scene. We can go back to our scripts folder for our player, and we can, I didn't have Visual Studio open, but we need to open up Visual Studio, and just like the last video, it opened up on that screen instead of the right screen. So now there's a few things that we need to do in code in order for this to actually work. So what we need to do is we need to add a variable. So at the top of our script, we are going to add private animator. Now again, you can call this whatever you want to call it. Like some people put anim, A-N-I-M, for animator, obviously for short. But you can do whatever you want as long as you and everyone working on your team knows what it is. All right. In start, we have to reference it. So animator equals gets component animator. Oops. Oh, we're just going to hit tab to finish it. There we go. So that's all we need to do there. Now down here in handle movement and animation, we have the movement, but we don't have the animation. And that's what we're going to add right now. So we're going to give ourselves some space, and we are going to add an if statement. Now, again, for those of you that are new to programming, an if statement is exactly what you would think. If this happens, then this has to happen. And it gets a lot more complicated than that. We'll go over those whenever we get a little further along. But for this situation, it's if, and then movement change not, so the exclamation means not, equals vector 3.0. So what we're saying there is if there is movement, essentially, because vector 3.0 means no movement. Anytime the player puts an input in for movement, then vector 3 is no longer 0. So that essentially means anytime there is movement. What we need to do is we need to take the animator and we need to set the float of, and this is again where you need to remember what you name things, move X. And the reason why you need to remember is because you're not going to get any errors. No matter what you type in those quotations, you're not going to get any errors, because unfortunately the script doesn't know what you've called that parameter and the animator. So you can type in literally anything and it'll look like everything's fine, but then when you go to actually test things, it won't work properly. So you definitely have to remember those names. But we're going to change move X to match movement change dot X. We have to do the same thing for move Y. And make sure we do the Y. There we go. And we also need to tell the animator that we're actually moving. So that's where that that bool comes in. So we do animator dot set bool. And again, you got to remember the name of the bool is moving. And we're going to set that to true. Okay. So you would think that's all we would need. However, if we run this right now, everything will work great until you stop moving. Once you stop moving, the animator does not know that you've stopped moving, so it'll continue to play the walk animation. So for those of you that are new to programming, we want to add an else. So essentially what an else statement is, it's saying if there's movement, run this block of code. But if there's not movement, or if there's something different happening, then you're going to run this block of code. And all we're really going to do here is set animator dot set bool is moving to false. But you can also do what's called an else if and add another condition. So there's really no need for it here, but we will come into a few else if statements a little bit later. Also, a lot of this, not a lot of this code, but most of this initial code is going to change at some point. The reason being is I do have a couple systems in place, mainly a state machine. So if for those of you that are familiar with programming, you know what a state machine is. For those of you that are new, I will explain that once we get to that point. But the state machine will handle a lot of this, but we still need to do this to get to test things to make sure it's working. One other thing that I like to do up in start is I like to take these two things and copy them and go up to start, paste them, and instead of movement change dot X, I do 0, and instead of movement change dot Y, I do -1. And the reason why I do that is because while technically in code, you should always be facing down. Sometimes things get a little weird, and depending on what you do with some of your code, like especially transitioning scenes and whatnot, your character might be facing the wrong way. This is just a temporary fix that I like to do for right now. As we get a little further, there's going to be other things to do to make this kind of useless, but for now and for this purpose, we are going to put that in there. So make sure you save your code again, Control S, Command S, or File, Save All. Then we go back to Unity. Code's going to compile. I want to move the player back to 0, 0. And we're going to hit play. So if we did everything right, we should now have animation, and the character should stop and face the same direction that they were moving whenever they were actually walking. So you saw a little bit of a glitch there where the character kind of like looked up. That's just because I let go of the left instead of letting go of left and up at the same time. But there you go. You now have a character that is animated. It'll animate as you move and the direction that you move. And yeah, we are making progress. So with that being said, this is where I'm going to end this video. If this video was helpful to you, or if you liked it, make sure you give it the big old thumbs up. Again, it doesn't hurt to subscribe. Make sure if you do subscribe to hit that little bell. I will be releasing more videos, and if you want to stay on top of those, definitely get those notifications. But as for today, that is all. So as per usual, have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one.